So today we're going to talk about safety and health for your family on the farm. This is a continuation of National Farm Safety Week. This is our disclaimer. I'll give you a minute to read through it, then move on to the second page so you can read the second part of the disclaimer. Okay, so what we're going to talk about today is farm first aid, emergency response plan, grain bin safety, pesticide safety, and protecting kids on the farm. In 2016, 417 farmers and farm workers died from work-related injuries, resulting in a fatality rate of 21.4 deaths per 100,000 workers. One of the most important things that I have learned here in California, we do have a lot of regulations, a lot of training, but one of the most important things about a training is that you ensure that people understand. It's very easy to just go up and train people based on the laws. And sometimes we all have different levels of education. So what may work for one person may not work for another. So we have to find different ways of teaching to ensure that the message is getting across. Because we are still, as you can see with the statistics, having a lot of fatalities, even with all of the training that we do. So we have to find a way to ensure that people are understanding what they are being trained on and enforcing all of the protections that are in place. Every day, about 100 agricultural workers suffer a lost work time injury. The Environmental Protection Agency estimates that 10,000 to 20,000 physician-diagnosed pesticide poisonings occur every year among the 2 million farm workers nationwide. And tractor overturn is a #1 cause of death. Again, there are a lot of trainings about tractor, a lot of information out there, but all of these, we must ensure that people are understanding and that we are enforcing all of the safety information that is put in place and that we're teaching. So what are common issues that occur on the farm? Cuts, burns, insect or animal bites and stings, sprains, strains, dehydration and heat exhaustion, frostbite and hypothermia, and broken bones. One of the most important thing here is sprains and strains. Again, going back to the tractor incident and the tractor statistics, one of the things that we observe when we go out and do tractor trainings, we do an evaluation piece. And one of the things that is commonly observed is that people are not coming down off the tractor correctly. What we're finding is that people go down the steps and they are jumping off the tractors, causing sprains, strains, or broken bones. So again, when there are trainings, make sure that you're observing. If you're the evaluator at your job site, make sure that you're evaluating it and letting them know what is the correct manner to come down from a tractor. Okay. And also, I know that there's a lot of uneven ground, so we always have to be careful where we're stepping and making sure that we can see where we're going. And dehydration and heat exhaustion, frostbite and hypothermia. Definitely they're in your heat illness prevention program. You should have information about acclimatization. This is very important that you are having that period, especially during the high heats. And what are some signs and symptoms of distress? Let's look at these: cramps, nausea, dizziness, disoriented, and unusual behavior. What can these be signs and symptoms of? Can you let me know here via the chat function or in the Q&A section? What can these be signs of? They're very common with a few different diagnoses, but what can they be signs of? Can they be signs of heat illness? Can they be signs of pesticide exposure? Okay, so they can definitely be similar. They can definitely be similar to both of those. So it is very important. I'm not sure if you have ever taken a first aid CPR class where we talk about asking the injured person or the person that's having these symptoms. It's very important to ask them questions. If you're familiar with the acronym of symptoms, you can ask them, what are the signs that you're experiencing? I'm sorry, that's the wrong acronym. The events that led up to it. What were you doing? Were you spraying pesticides? Were you around pesticides? Were you in the heat? Did you not drink water? So it's very important to ask these questions as to what led up to this situation, as to why they're feeling, so you know how to treat them correctly, okay? What should be in a well-stocked first aid kit? Alcohol wipes. This can help with cuts. That was also some signs and symptoms of distress. Band-aids of various sizes. Gauze. With a gauze, make sure that it's the non-adhesive gauze, because this can be useful in cuts and burns and things like that, because the regular gauze, it can stick to your skin, and then when it's peeled off, it can cause or reopen the wound or cause the skin to break if there's a burn. So make sure it's the non-adhesive gauze. Medical tape, disposable gloves. We never want to start any type of first aid without wearing our gloves because we can't look at a person and see if they have any type of infectious disease or anything. So we always want to make sure that we protect ourselves and make sure that they are non-latex, because there are latex allergies. Tweezers, Neosporin, Sharpie marker. Why do you think it's important to have a Sharpie marker? In case there's any type of bites, right? You can mark wherever you see the swelling, mark around the swelling and put the time to see if that swelling is getting worse or bigger or spreading. Ziploc bags, in case there's any type of amputations. You can put the amputated object on top of the Ziploc bag, not inside the ice, or actually in a Ziploc bag to maintain it dry, and then put that over ice. Not deep inside the ice so that it doesn't get frozen, but just on top of it. Cotton balls, over-the-counter medicine. This only applies for family if it's a small farm and it's a family owned and only family works there. Once you have an employee that is not a family member, you cannot have over-the-counter medicine, especially aspirins, because there are people that have aspirin allergies. And not only that, there are some people that can be taking blood thinning medication to where giving them aspirin will make their blood even thinner, and now you're can be causing other types of issues. And where should you be keeping first aid kits? Definitely in your house, in an office, if you have people working in an office setting, in the shop, in the barn, near bathrooms, in pickup trucks to access in the field, tractor cab, and worker housing if applicable. The most important thing that you need to do to respond to a first aid need is remain calm. You're not going to inspire any confidence if you're acting hysterical and trying to help somebody, right? I know I would feel very uncomfortable if someone was looking very stressed, looking very anxious, trying to help me. I would feel not confidence in them. So very important to remain calm when you're helping somebody, because by you remaining calm, it may also calm the person that is injured. And that's one thing that we want to do is keep them calm, especially depending during during first emergency situations. Okay, so most important, remain calm. Always wear gloves. Remember, your protection is always the most important. When in doubt, call 911. Have logical driving directions prepared in advance. I've been to some locations where I've been given a map where the training is going to take place, and it's clearly, all of the roads are clearly labeled, you know, because sometimes you go into places and it looks like a maze to someone that's not familiar to it. So having things like that, I've heard where other people have emergency procedures in place where someone will go, while somebody is providing first aid, another person runs to the end of the field and waves like an orange or red flag to wave down the ambulance driver or whoever's responding to that 911 call. So different things like that. Meet emergency service as close as practical. Sometimes that is not practical. Having the logical driving directions is more important. Because what if it's somebody that has fallen off a ladder? You definitely don't want to move anybody if you suspect that there's some type of spinal injury. So always have something in place where someone goes again to the end of the row and waves people in, or gets their attention somehow. And definitely have someone stay with the victim if possible. And again, I'm not sure if you've ever taken any type of first aid CPR class. If for some reason somebody is not able to stay with the person, there is this position called the recovery position, where you can turn them over on their side. And you want to leave somebody in that position if you are having to leave them alone for two reasons. One, in case they are vomiting, so that they don't aspirate on their vomit. Two, if you want to maintain an open airway, if they are unconscious, you can turn them over on their side so that their tongue is not an obstruction, an obstruction to their airway. Any questions? Okay. So developing a plan, it must be in writing. Have alarm systems in place. Whether it's smoke alarms, carbon monoxide detectors, or sometimes when we have a large event, if there's some type of emergency, we use horn blowers. So different things like that. Just have something that everybody's aware that if you hear this noise, it means that there's some type of emergency or something. And have gathering locations, whether it's in a house, a barn, shop, office, field, worker housing if applicable. Anywhere that's far away from the emergency, especially if there's a fire or anything like that. What kind of emergencies can there be? Structural fire. You would notify 911 immediately. Never block your way out. Count all heads. If there is a way for you to be able to take some kind of roll or know how many people are at work on that specific day, because that way you can do a quick head count and make sure that you can account for everybody. Wildfires, additional hazards like chemicals, asbestos, ash, dust, demolition, excavation, firefighting products. Flood, severe weather. You can set parameters for when you'll stop work. Communication with lone workers is very important to make sure that they are safe. Have shelters in place if possible. Medical emergency, notify 911 immediately, and provide first aid as needed once you're in a safe place. Grain bin safety. Lock out unloading equipment before entering. Do not enter bins alone or without an observer. Wear safety harnesses and secure a lifeline. Wear a dust mask or respirator. I'm going to send you a link of a video that I found that is very informative about grain bin safety. It takes only 90 seconds for an adult person for there to be a fatality with an adult person during a grain engulfment. It's very important to make sure that they wear their safety harness. Again, this video, I'm going to send it out to you. Very informative. Once it gets past your to your knees, it's like it's at the last point that somebody can be helped. It is very important for people to be partnered up when somebody is going to enter a silo, because there has been instances where somebody enters alone and they don't know that they're missing until their loved one calls, wondering why they never came home from work. So this is very important information to definitely don't enter the bins alone, because that way someone, if there's needs to be contacted, if someone needs to contact emergency personnel, they can do it immediately as soon as they see that there's some type of danger. If you can continue to push the grain without having to go in, that's the best thing that you can do. But make sure that you do wear a safety harness if there needs to be somebody going in. Attempt to break up grain without entering bins, something we just talked about. Take your time and use common sense. Avoid loose fitting or torn clothes while working with equipment. Again, very important. I know sometimes people say, oh, I've been doing this for a long time. But it is when people get comfortable that accidents can happen the most. Because just because you've been able to do something incorrectly a certain way without having any type of injuries, doesn't mean that you're always going to be that lucky. So always make sure that you have your employees doing everything the correct way. So now let's talk about pesticide safety. Important steps in limiting pesticide risk. Pesticide exposure can occur from residue on sources like soil, tractors, use personal protective equipment, irrigation water, and the product. When working in a pesticide-treated area, wash hands before eating, drinking, using the restroom, or chewing gum. Because remember, residue can be anywhere. So you definitely want to make sure that you wash your hands with soap and water before going out to eat or after you've been in any type of treated area. Or even if you don't know if it's been treated, always make sure that you're washing your hands with soap and water before eating or drinking. Wash work clothes in hot water with a strong detergent, separate from your family's laundry and sun dry. Remember, this can contaminate and have residue. So you want to make sure that you're not mixing it in with your family's clothing, so as not to pass anything over there. Pesticide handlers must follow rules on the pesticide label. This label is the law. And what's included on a pesticide label? What type of important information can you find on a label? If you can let me know here in the chat function or in the Q&A section down at the bottom of your screen. What are some important information that you can find on a pesticide label? One of the most important things is first aid procedures. Yeah, exactly, all the PPE that you need. Because every label, even things that we use at home, um, will have personal protective equipment um, that you will need to use for that specific um, pesticide or chemical. Okay. And again, first aid information. What do you do if it gets on you? And it tells you there whether you can use water, whether you can use, or whatever you can do, rinse your eyes out, whatever the case, it's included on there. All of that good information. And very important, do not take pesticides or pesticide containers home with you. We've all heard horror stories about people taking, or even us at home, we have leftover cleaning materials, cleaning supplies, and we put it in an unlabeled container. And then sure enough, people in our family, people around us, whatever the case may be, will grab it not knowing what it is. And either will ingest it, will put it on something else, mix it with something else, to where it can be very unsafe. So definitely do not take pesticides or pesticide containers at home with you, because there can be dangers that can happen without us intending it. Important steps in limiting pesticide risk. Posting signs are used along fields that have been recently sprayed. Do not enter posted fields. Pesticide needs to be stored in a locked storage area with an appropriate posting signs. Definitely, if a field has been recently treated, there will always be information about the reentry time, when you can go in, so you can allow all of your workers to know when it's safe to enter a treated field. And definitely store them in a locked storage with appropriate posting signs. There was an audit that we did one time where the person had the pesticides stored in a locked storage. Everything was fine there, but his had the PPE that was required for those chemicals was also stored in the locked storage area. So definitely, if there is PPE that is required, make sure that it is somewhere not locked with the pesticides, because at that point there's already potential exposure. So you want to make sure that the PPE is kept somewhere different than where you keep your pesticides. Keeping children safe. Avoid taking young children into the work site while working. Have a designated safe place area away from the work site. Keep children off vehicles and machinery until they are old enough to operate them. This webinar is for all of the United States. So there are some, even here in California, there are some family-owned farms where people do take their children. Definitely importance that you don't take them to the work site. There could be potential other people driving tractors around that they may not be able to see. Small kids, especially if they're not with the adults right behind them. Definitely have a designated safe place where they can be, and don't let them get on the vehicles. Sometimes, especially if you get more than one child together, they want to play tag or they want to play hide and seek. And where are they going to go hide? Behind the big tires of the tractors, right? And make sure that they're not in or around them. they can accidentally, even on regular cars, shift the gear and the car can start rolling. So make sure that they are either not in that area if it can be avoided, and if it can't, make sure that someone is always keeping an eye on them or keeping them in a designated area. Only assign tasks or chores which are age and ability appropriate. Train kids to perform tasks safely. Lead by example. Remember, our kids are always watching us. So it's not always what we say, but it's what we do. Always have an adult available to supervise kids. Ensure kids are wearing appropriate personal protective equipment. For example, noise canceling headphones. Fit tanks, troughs, and wells with strong mesh or lids. Fill in ditches and with other drowning hazards. Okay. Do you have any questions on today's webinar? I'm going to send you that link again. It is very informative. I really enjoyed watching this video. So I'm going to send that out to you. Does anybody have any questions before we end today's webinar? Well, we have another webinar tomorrow. Natalie will be back to talk about confined spaces in ag. And then on Friday, we will have another guest speaker to talk about safety and health for women in ag. I hope you can join us, and I hope you have a great day.